and others that have talked about it. I think it's a great way to build the faith. So let me go to my next slide here. I tried to make it a little bit bigger, easier for you guys to read, hopefully. So as we go over it, opening prayer, Scott just knocked that out of the park. Go over last month a little bit, this month's overview, some Q&A, and then some important dates in the end. So everybody hearing me okay? Thumbs up? We're good? Cool. All right. So last month we talked about what apologetics really are. And for a lot of us, we didn't even know the definition of apologetics before we started this little crusade. So we got to remember that apologetics isn't us apologizing for our faith, it's us defending our faith. And I know that as we talked last month a little bit, I know that there was some apprehension on, well, I don't think I can become an apologetic, and it's a lot to take in and stuff like that. But remember, go at it slow. Okay, it's not a race. Learning is a lifelong thing, and I think you guys need to make sure that you attack it that way. Don't try to get everything in all at once. Make this a lifelong learning. Take the lessons that we give and the things that you read and the things that you see on the website and roll with it. Okay. If you have questions, ask the questions. Remember that none of us are experts at this. Maybe Deacon Tom and Father have a lot more skill at this than we do. They've been to school for it and stuff like that. And we're just trying to start slow and build a strong faith community, a strong faith community of men. Remember that we talked last week about the idea of what being a father is also, last month. The idea that the smallest church within the Catholic faith is the home. And we have responsibility as fathers, husbands, to get our family members to heaven. And that's one huge part of apologetics and evangelization and trying to keep the faith strong. And if we can lead that, we'll be much better off. We talked about how when we were at my house 2 weeks after that, how we have to do a better job of being that example also. That example is really huge. If you're not the example, then people aren't going to give you a lot of credibility. So we have to be examples in our own home, in our own community, and in our own church. And I think we're the right group to do that in our church. And I think we need to keep this strong and keep this going. Raise your guys' hands if any of you guys downloaded some of those apps and stuff from the last meeting, either here at my house or from a meeting that we did online last time. I'm hoping that you guys have downloaded some of those apps and really are starting to explore some of those. Hopefully you've gone to the Institute, St. Thomas Institute, and checked out some of the stuff they have there and some of the other apps that we had you guys look at. Really important. They do lead us, I think, down the right path. All those apps that we talked about were things that the church is in favor of and has given approval to. So those are things we can trust. Those are things we can build on and build our relationship. Hopefully you found something useful. Think about some of these questions I have up here as we go through, and maybe at the end you can come back to some of these questions on what you found useful last month, over the course of the last month, and things that might have changed for you and how you've grown a little bit, and even things that you've struggled with, something that maybe has challenged you. Go ahead and ask those questions a little bit later too, and then maybe we can, as a group, as a faith group, answer some of those questions and bring some clarity to that. Knowledge is the key. I talked last time about being authentic. You have to go out and get that knowledge, but if you don't know something, don't be afraid to ask. And don't be afraid to tell somebody, I don't know the answer to that, but let me get back to you. Scott gave us a good cheat sheet for the Bible on a lot of the questions that usually get asked of us from Protestants, our Protestant brothers and sisters, and what they ask about the Catholic Church and how we can defend that and where we can find that stuff to defend it better. So make sure that you guys look at that and go over that, and that'll be helpful hints for you also. So do that. And like I said, it's okay to make a mistake. I make them all the time. I could go get my wife upstairs and she'd let you know. It happens. We make mistakes, but it's important to acknowledge those mistakes and move forward and try to make things better. And then the last thing I want to talk about, sort of last time, is we're not saying that you guys all have to be apologists. Like we mentioned, some of you guys were really kind of worried about how deep this can go and how much there is out there. And that's okay. We're not asking you to be apologists, but I think if you go down this path with us and you see what we're doing in this path and in this journey as we build our faith, I think you'll gain a deeper knowledge of your own faith. You'll be more confident in guiding your family to where they're supposed to be, and that's heaven. And you'll have a lot more ability to guide yourself there too. So don't be afraid of that, and don't think that we all have to become apologists, right? I think just the knowledge alone, the learning alone, the growing of our own spiritual life, the growing in our own mind is what's key here. And maybe out of this we'll get some apologists, maybe we won't. But I think as a group, I think we can do a really good job of defending our faith, at least with one another, answer questions for one another, build that faith out. One thing I was listening today on the radio, when we talk about evangelization, we talk about apologetics, we talk about our role. Remember that Jesus, the living God, he comes down to earth, and instead of appearing to everyone everywhere at the same time and giving them the message, he started small. He picked out 12 guys, 12 regular Joes like us. Some of them were tax collectors who were hated by people. Some were just average fishermen, just laborers. They're working hard. They're just guys. And he picked those 12 guys with all their faults to follow him. And then after Christ died and Christ resurrected and he's there with the apostles, and before he ascends into heaven, he says, now go out and do what I've done for you. So they went out in pairs of two, and they started to comb the earth from where they started from. And it starts at a small level. So like I said, you don't have to be an apologist, but we do want to start something. We want that flame burning inside of you so that you go forward and you be a witness to what our church is, to what the Catholic faith is, to what Jesus set forth all those years ago. So please take that and roll forward with us. Join this journey that we're on. I'm pretty excited about it. I know that a lot of you guys are excited about it. It's been a lot of talk. It's fun to be in a church, in the back of the church, to have people come and ask us questions. And I think every Mass, we get one or two more people coming up and asking, hey, what's this all about? They log in, they'll take the text, and they'll log in. And I think it's starting to grow a little bit. But remember, even Jesus, God, in all of his power and glory, could have started everywhere. But he started with people like us, with guys like us, to go out and be those leaders, to be those apostles, to be those disciples, those ones that are going to be teaching. And I think that's part of our role also as we go through this process. So keep that up, guys. All right. So this month's lesson deals with some topics that are pretty hard to take. Lots of times they're those hard topics that we don't even like talking with our family with, that we feel the most comfortable with. The things we don't feel comfortable talking with our family with, our friends with, and for sure strangers. I don't think a lot of us are going up to strangers in the street and saying, hey, God doesn't want you to do marijuana, right? It'd be cool if we did. I think that's pretty brave, bold move. But let's go over what they said in the videos and what the St. Thomas Institute is trying to preach when it comes to apologetics and the role that drugs and addiction play when it comes into our life. So the title of that first lesson was called Drugs, Marijuana, and Alcohol. I thought to myself, isn't marijuana a drug? And they kind of figured it out as they went through the lesson. But it is a drug, and we all know that. But I think one of the backstories to all of these that wasn't really mentioned in the video that I think we need to talk about a little bit, because I know, Adam, you posted one of the comments in the comments at the bottom, and I thank you for doing that. We need to make sure we're doing that a lot when we're going through lessons if we have questions and stuff like that. I know, Jose, you have a question. We'll talk about a little bit later too when it comes to abortion and life issues. But I think one of the back issues that wasn't talked about is addiction. And I think that it's not just drugs, marijuana, and alcohol. You know, we've been, those of you that have been to the retreat, you know, we've bared our souls about some of the problems we've had as men. And, you know, a lot of those come right back to addiction. And it might not be these three things. We can be addicted to a lot of things out there. And it could be the internet. It could be pornography. It can be food. It can be ourselves, self-engrossed and full of ourselves and pride. We can be addicted to things like pride and winning and stuff like that and forget a lot of other things. And I think that's a little bit of human nature, but I think it's also important for us to recognize that and know that we have those issues and that we have a support system and these brothers that can help us out with that. So when that's going to be the first thing we'll talk about, contraceptives. Raise your hand if you've got a 14 to 16-year-old daughter in your house. That's a fun topic to talk about. Is that mom's job? Is that your job? I think as a father, that's partly your job. I think your children need to know the expectations of you, both boys and girls, as the church teaches us, as the Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches us, the role that we have to play in our households as we move through this. I have the special opportunity to talk about some of the stuff with my confirmation kids, and we talk about what the church's stand is on contraception and how cherished the body is, and that we're made in the image and likeness of God, and that to abuse our body and to think contraception is okay is something we definitely need to talk about. Homosexuality, the church is very clear on its stand on homosexuality. We'll get into some of the things they say a little bit later on. I took some pretty good mental notes on some of the stuff I wanted to say on that. And I have also the special, pleasure of being in a public school where a lot of the stuff is coming out now and it's becoming much more commonplace. And, that's kind of hard to deal with sometimes because I'm trying to be strong in my faith and I see stuff in school all the time. And what's my response to that? And I'm sure that we have some of the same issues within our families too. So we'll talk about that. And the last one, and this one's huge. I don't know if you guys watched the news lately. Shame on Governor Cuomo, a Catholic man that signs an abortion law to the Constitution in New York, basically allowing for partial birth abortions all the way up until the woman's in labor and dilated. There's been some talk about that, and Virginia the same way. Rhode Island's thinking about doing the same thing, and so is Vermont. And where's our Catholic leaders there? Where are we stepping up and saying, hold on a second, and define what life means? And we'll talk about some of that as we get in the lessons. We going okay? Am I talking too fast? Everyone's all right? Thumbs up. Okay. So let's go with the first one. Drugs, marijuana, and alcohol. As you read through or looked at the videos, if you did that, if you haven't done that, I'll kind of go over it here today. Drunkenness, first of all, we can talk about drunkenness. It's a sin. And the reason why drunkenness is a sin is it impairs your integrity. It impairs your ability to reason, and it tears down the image and likeness of God that God has in you. The idea of temperance is different than prohibition. The church is okay with alcohol. It's always been in the church. It's always been in history. When you look at some of the things the Bible says in Ecclesiastes and Luke and John, they all have things about drinking wine. Jesus turned the water into wine, right? At Mass, when we go to Mass, every single day when the Mass is celebrated, we consecrate the wine and it becomes the blood of Christ. It's still wine at its core, but it's the blood of Christ. So alcohol has been involved in our faith for a long time period, and what the church definitely doesn't want is that abuse of that alcohol, because I don't think a lot of people go into drinking if they're going to get drunk one night. They know they're going to get drunk that night. They're not just recreational drinking and all of a sudden boom, they're drunk. So that takes if you look at it as a form of sin, you actively, voluntarily drink the alcohol. Okay, you chose to do that. You chose to impair yourself, and that's why the church considers alcohol a sin. With drugs, marijuana and other drugs, all the opioids out there, stuff like that, they automatically impair you, and they take away that spirituality and the vitality that you have, and that image that you have that you're supposed to maintain in the image and likeness of God. So we definitely have to be very careful as we talk about temperance of it. Okay, and the biblical proof is there, like I said. It's in several chapters of the Bible. You guys can look it up. They have a list of them on the website. After you go through and watch the video, they have a list of different things. I got kind of a list here. Genesis, Isaac drinks wine. Isaac, God provides choice wine. Luke, Jesus drinks wine. John, Jesus turns water into wine. In Timothy, Paul tells Timothy to drink wine. So it's there, but it's also there in temperance. There's not a single place where it says that you should drink to excess. Drinking to excess and drunkenness and losing control of your faculties can lead to debauchery. It can lead to a lot of other sins, and that's really kind of one of the keys you guys have to be aware of. The other ones, like I said, the moment you do with some of these other drugs, you're automatically impaired. Of course, you can use drugs for medicinal purposes, and they're good for that, and there's a reason why God put them on earth, and that's for those reasons, right? But the abuse of those is just definitely wrong, and we want to make sure that if we know somebody that's doing that, we have to be bold enough to offer help, and it's not to criticize, it's not to blast them. Most people that are doing drugs and they're addicted to drugs have a serious problem, and blasting them and criticizing them is not going to help. Offering help is going to help. Trying to help them out, trying to do what's right. So make sure you guys think about that too. Like I said, it detracts from our likeness of God. It detracts from our dignity. It detracts from a lot of other things that can lead to a lot of danger. I know that in the video, it talked about how it can lead to things like, drunk driving and then the amount of people that puts into danger if you're drunk driving. You can really do a lot of damage if you're out on the road speeding and driving drunk, and people die from that all the time, and that's not a good thing. So it can lead to a lot of other dangers, and that's why the church is definitely believes that this is a huge issue. Okay, and like I said, the last thing down here is addiction. A lot of these drugs are gateway drugs, and a lot of our young adults don't see it that way. They think it's okay. They think marijuana is better than drinking, or marijuana is better than cigarettes because it doesn't have the nicotine and the tar. But marijuana and drugs kill brain cells. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but the only cell in the body that does not regenerate are brain cells. We're born with a certain number of them, and when we start doing things like this, it's going to deteriorate them, and you're going to be in a worse off place. So make sure you guys follow the Catechism of the Church, do what the Church teaches, be that person of support if you can, and try to meet people where they're at, like we mentioned last time. All right, my screen's kind of messed up that I'm looking at. I'm assuming it's still okay. I'm like really tiny in the bottom right-hand corner now, but that's okay. I need to lose some weight anyway. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. All right.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you guys see me still?
Yeah. Can I say something real quick about what you just were talking about
absolutely.
Drugs and marijuana? I remember hearing a long time ago an example of when, children are in the front yard and parents put boundaries on where they can go, and the children may not be old enough to understand that cars are coming around the corner real fast. Like maybe you live near a corner, you know what I'm saying? And so parents put boundaries in place for the safety of their children, not to withhold from them, but to bless them, to keep them safe. And I know that, for me, I got to constantly remind myself that these commands and what God tells us not to do is really for our good. He's not withholding any good thing from us, Sure. I don't know. That was just going to my mind as you were talking.
No, that's a good point. I think the church wants us to maintain that image and likeness of God, and I think as I mentioned last week, the more I get into my faith and the more I understand my faith, the more I feel free. I know my limits. I know where I'm supposed to be, where I'm not supposed to be. I don't have to try to hide things because I know what the limit is, and you stop. And I think that's actually freeing, I think, in my mind's eye. And I hope you guys feel that way too, that you don't think that all the rules that the church have are there to bind you. And man, the church has a whole bunch of rules and they're so strict that if you know what the rules are and you stay in those bounds, you're so much more free. You don't have to try to hide things. How much energy do we waste trying to hide things from other people that we might be doing wrong? when we could be using that energy to go out and proclaim the goodness of the Lord, right? And bring people close to the faith. So,
Amen.
all right. Next one, contraception. I'm going to start off by saying, I'm going to start off with the bottom one here. If you guys see that, it says, many of us had very poor catechesis in this area. If you're around my age, which is, mid late 40s, if you're 40s, 50s, even in your 30s, the catechesis of the church, I think in the 1970s and 80s, was very, very poor. I think I made a comment of this actually on the website, and I don't think it was ingrained in us enough, and I don't think that we really understood what contraception meant. It was kind of a taboo topic that you didn't really talk about. I think most of us learned about contraception from our friends, right? And it was a means to get around what we actually wanted to do, which was also a sin. So it's kind of interesting when you look at how those two are tied together. But I can't just blame the church either, because the church had the catechism. The church had the rules on contraception. And I felt if I didn't know it, it's not that bad. One of those cafeteria cat things, right? If I didn't know the rules exactly, then I don't have to really follow the rules exactly. And that leads to sin again. Like we just said a few minutes ago, I could have went out and read the catechism of the church. I could have went out and read the church fathers, but I was too busy being self-absorbed, too busy being prideful, too busy thinking of myself and myself in the here and now, and not myself where I want to be in the end. I want to go to heaven. I don't want to go to hell. It looks like a bad place, so I hear. And I think we look for that instant gratification, and that instant gratification leads to a lot of other sins when we're not thinking about the greater good. So I was really poorly catechized in this area. I didn't really understand the church's view of it. You heard things about, like, when I was in high school, like the rhythm method and stuff like that. But, I think the idea of this for a lot of us growing up was not to get girls pregnant, and contraception just kept that from happening. And what we don't understand about contraception, and what the video so clearly does, is the act of sex has one purpose. And you guys know what that is. It's to bring children into the world, right? And anything that interrupts that interrupts the integrity of the act. Every time, you have sex, you have to understand that the possibility, the end result of that might be a child. And you have to be willing to accept that going into that. And I don't think there's a guy in the world, in America, that understands that fact when they're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And I think the older we get, the wiser we get. It's a lot easier for me to understand this today than 25 years ago. It's you look back on it, and it's stuff that it's good to know now, and it's our opportunity now that we know these things to go out and teach these things. And like I said, I have the opportunity to teach our confirmation kids, and it's one of the topics we have to talk about is the body. And in a room full of 14 and 15-year-old boys and girls, that's a hard topic to teach. Last year, I had my own daughter in that class. That was entertaining, but it was also the right thing to do, right? It was also allowed me to explain the church's position, and hopefully these kids that we're teaching are picking up on that. Okay. The Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that artificial contraception is an intrinsic evil. There's plenty of places within the Bible that talks about that. As you went through the videos, some of those Greek words that I can't even pronounce, directly relate to some of that stuff that they talked about in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. So make sure that you're bold enough to talk to your children about this, or talk to other kids about this, or talk to people you might have influence over that might be younger and even older. It's not like it's just a teenage thing, or a young adult thing. I think a lot of people don't know what the stance of the Catholic Church is, and what the Catechism says, and why it's important to uphold the integrity of the body, and to understand that. I know that growing up, you heard the saying my body is a temple. I think a lot of us just took that as my body's my temple, and it's not a temple for the Lord. And we need to try to kind of remember that and get back to those roots, I think. So, we all good? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay. The next one, homosexuality and same-sex marriage. This is definitely a topic that's changed over the last few years, and the acceptance of homosexuality in America today has definitely changed. I know that when I was in high school, man, that was a taboo subject, and if somebody claimed to be homosexual, pretty much pariah at that point in time. And in that sense, you know, you don't have a good sense of how to treat other human beings either. And I think when you talk about it, you know, this goes right back to the contraception thing and your body that God made man and woman. He didn't make man and man, and it wasn't Adam and Adam and Eve and Eve. It was Adam and Eve. We have to believe that in our faith. We have to believe that in our soul. We have to believe that with our integrity. That being said, there are people that have homosexual tendencies. There are people that prefer same-sex individuals. And the church's stance on homosexuality is we need to be compassionate to those people that are homosexual, and remember that the homosexual act is the sin. There are plenty of people that are homosexuals that have chosen to live chaste lives. They know they have a same-sex attraction, but they also know what the church says, and they've chosen to do that. They've chosen to lead a chaste life. You're required as a married man to lead a chaste life, and that chaste life is you and your wife, and that's it, right? But natural law dictates that men and women are created in certain ways for certain reasons, and that's to go forth and multiply, to have children, and same-sex marriage or same-sex attraction, same-sex couple is not able to do that. So the church teaching is very, very clear on this, and it's also in sacred scripture. But the current trend today is a lot different. And one thing that the slideshows and the Institute didn't bring up is this idea of gender dysphoria, which I have down on the bottom. You know, there's a big push right now in a lot of schools, especially public schools and across the nation, to have gender neutral kids, and this idea that you get to choose your gender, and the church just flat out doesn't believe that. You are either male or female, and God gave you the parts for either one of those two. And that's the way you should live your life. And this idea of allowing kids to decide what gender they're supposed to be is ridiculous. The church definitely does not teach that, and you know, we can't just allow for that to happen. We have to make sure that we identify individuals as male and female, and support them where they're at. And you know, we have relatives that might be homosexual. We have you know, people that we know that might struggle with that, and we still need to love them as human beings. They're still you know, children of God. But it's the act, the sexual act that they're doing is the sin part. It detracts from the natural law. It detracts from God's law, and it's not the way we were created or meant to be. So kind of understand that. Like I said earlier, I teach at a public high school, and times have changed in the last 20 years, and it's a topic that you know, I've got to be careful of as I'm teaching, and how I approach people, and how I approach people that might have gender dysphoria, and those that claim to be homosexual and stuff like that. I don't think that we realize that the human brain doesn't stop developing, and emotionally we're still pretty unstable up until about the age of 25, and even after that, sometimes we're still unstable. But emotionally, we don't develop that fast. We don't understand our role in society sometimes, and we can't promote this idea of gender dysphoria and selecting your own gender when God had a plan originally, and we kind of stick to that plan. I hope I'm not speaking too much out of line with the Catholic Church. Maybe Deacon Tom can make sure we're on that right path there. But from what I know, that's how I see what the church has said, from what I've heard and read and stuff like that. So maybe Deacon Tom, at the end, you can kind of come back around and attack that a little bit. That would be great. When you look in the Bible and you look at sacred scripture, there's several texts in the Bible. In Genesis, God made male and female. In Genesis 19, the homosexuals of Sodom destroyed. In Leviticus, homosexual called an abomination. In Leviticus, death penalty for homosexuality. In Romans, homosexuals called unnatural, shameful, and perversity. The church is clear on the homosexual act and stuff like that, but it's also very clear on that they're people, and we need to support those people where they're at, and give as much love as we can without violating what the church teaches and what God's law is. So, all right, next. All right, abortion. I was going to spend just a little bit of time on this. I think a lot of you guys know that I teach history, and maybe we don't know where this push for abortion has come and when it became legal and stuff. So if you bear with me for a few minutes, let me give you just a short history on abortion. Is that okay? You guys, everybody good with that?
Yep. Good.
So you kind of know how this came about. So in the 1800s, abortion was seen as not a bad thing, as long as the abortion took place before what was called quickening. So quickening is the idea that the baby moves for the first time in the womb. And at that point in time, a lot of people back in the 1800s considered it's alive at that point in time, and that having an abortion after that point in time was intrinsically evil and not good. Okay, well, the problem is that people continue to have abortions after that point in time, and in the late 1880s, the doctors in America and the board of doctors decided that they should make abortion illegal because people were still having abortions, and the people that were doing the abortions were doing horrific things, and the likelihood of you dying from getting an abortion was almost as high or higher than you dying giving birth. And they felt that it was too risky of a procedure, that these women are going into these back alleys and getting abortions, so they decided to make it illegal. Well, the problem with that was that it didn't stop women from having abortions, obviously. I think it was attacked the wrong way. It wasn't really attacked on the grounds of life of the child. It was more the rights of the woman. And abortion was illegal in America up until the 1960s. In the 1960s, doctors started to change their position. They started to believe that abortion was it was still happening, even though they made it illegal. People still did it, and then if they're still going to happen, maybe they should legalize it so that it can be done in a hospital with a trained medical staff. And some states started to change that. In 1971, in Texas, a 19-year-old high school dropout who was already married and divorced and pregnant decided she wanted to go have an abortion. And she goes to the doctors in the Dallas area and she asks for abortion, and the doctors say no. At that point in time, she kind of lawyers up, and some very feminist lawyers jumped on the case. One of them named Linda Coffey. She is kind of a radical feminist and starts to push for an injunction from a judge to try to get the abortion passed. The judge says no, and they're going to appeal that to the Supreme Court. Well, in that time period, Jane Roe is going to go ahead and have the baby because she can't get the abortion legally. That child was born in 1971, and they appealed it to the Supreme Court. The really interesting thing is at this point in time, Jane Roe kind of gets left to the wayside. They kind of drop her from the case itself. She's really not a main focus of it, and these feminists really start to push this, and they appeal to the Supreme Court. 2 years after she had tried to get an abortion, the Supreme Court's going to finally decide in 1973 on Roe versus Wade. In Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court ruled that in the first trimester, abortion was legal. In the second trimester, abortion was legal as long as it didn't hurt the mother. And in the third trimester, abortion was illegal unless it was to save the life of the mother. Say there's a horrible car wreck and the doctor's got to choose between the baby and the mother. Although subsequent court cases have actually pretty much allowed for late-term abortions anyway. Well, years later, in the 1990s, Jane Roe was just a name they gave this lady because she didn't want people to know who she was. So it was kind of like John Doe, Jane Roe. And in the 1990s, she comes out and tells everybody who she is, and her name is Norma McCorvey. And in the 1990s, Norma McCorvey, who had been pretty much used by the feminist movement and this idea of right to life, the right to abortion, used her court case to really push this movement of legalized abortion just about everywhere at about any time. And she became a huge pro-life activist, and she spent the rest of her life as a pro-life activist trying to, I think, repent for what had happened. And she died about 3 years ago, I think, Norma McCorvey did. And that's how the Jane Roe, the Roe versus Wade story kind of comes about. One thing the Supreme Court didn't do, though, and I think this is where a lot of the problems come, is the Supreme Court did not define when life begins. Okay, they said they would leave that up to theologians and scientists and philosophers to decide when life begins. I think it's a pretty chicken way out of that. I think the Supreme Court dropped the ball on that one big time because as you read through the stuff on the chapter, listen to the St. Thomas Institute, even scientifically speaking, when life begins is a pretty simple process. You know, I have the opportunity to teach this lesson to my students at school, and legally, I am definitely strapped by what I can say and what I can't say when it comes to teaching this stuff. And the question I typically leave them with as I do this, and you know, being a revert to the church, I'm definitely more passionate about this now. I'll ask them, scientifically speaking, when does any life begin? And I'll ask them, when does life of a tree begin? When does life of a beetle begin? And the scientific answer to that is when cells divide. And in a pregnancy, when do cells divide? As soon as the sperm meets the egg, cells start dividing. So scientifically speaking, it's been proven that life begins at cell division. And for the pro-choice activists to say it's a women's rights thing and the women has the right to choose is just wrong. The Catholic Church is very firm on their teaching of abortion, the right to life. The March for Life was just a couple of weeks ago in D.C., followed by several others, because the anniversary of Roe versus Wade was January, I believe, 19th-ish or something like that. So I try to leave my students with that thought in their head that life begins as soon as cells divide. And I kind of just stop the lesson there and let them chew on that. And it's pretty interesting lesson to go through with kids. I think luckily, because we live in Utah, it's a pretty conservative state, I think a lot of kids definitely are pro-life, more so in Utah than other places. But it's also interesting to look at your station in life on where you believe in pro-life and pro-choice. I had a friend yesterday, last night or night before, said he's against abortion, but he's pro-choice because he said it's not his decision. And that's the wrong attitude too, I think. You know, I could have came back at him a little bit better. I'm lucky that I get to see him once in a while. I get to work on him on this issue, and it doesn't have to be a right now in your face thing. But again, I just defend the idea that life begins at conception, and that's definitely teaching the Catholic Church. And I think we need to keep that in mind. So when you talk about that, make sure you guys understand that. Make sure that your family understands the position of the Catholic Church, the role of the Catholic Church. and make sure that there's evidence of this even in the Bible. So the lesson talked about in Jacob, God made you in the womb, formed us in our mothers. In Isaiah, the Lord formed you in the womb. Again, Isaiah, I've upheld you since you were conceived. Before you were born, I set you apart. When Jesus went and visited John the Baptist, when he was still in the womb, John leapt in the womb upon the Lord entering the house. So kind of keep that in mind too as you guys go through this and talk about what abortion is and what the Catholic stance on that. The other end of that too is actually euthanasia, which has become very big, and we have to be careful with that also. From one of the sayings I've heard is from womb to tomb, that we protect life. And I know Jose had some questions about military that maybe we'll get to here in a minute. The other things you need to be aware of, and I don't know if you guys are, like I mentioned when we first started tonight, New York just passed a amendment to the Constitution allowing for partial birth abortions all the way up until the mothers in labor. The governor of Virginia last week stated that they would actually allow for a birth to happen. And he said on the radio that they would keep the baby comfortable, resuscitate it if they need to, then have a conversation with the mother and decide at that point in time what to do. We like to call that infanticide or murder at that point. And then, like I said, Rhode Island's thinking about amending their constitution, I heard today, and so is Vermont. And these are things that we need to definitely make sure that we're aware of. You know, there's a lot of congressmen in D.C., both Republican and Democrat, that claim to be Catholic and are supporting some of these bills and claim to be pro-choice, and that's clearly a violation of sin against against God and the Church's ideas. So kind of keep that in mind. We cool? We got that? I hope I didn't go on too long with my lecture on Roe versus Wade. I thought some historical context might be really good, and where we stand as Catholic faith and what we have to defend when it comes to life. Okay? All right. I think that's kind of it. I think it's time to open it up for questions and insight, and if there's anything you guys would like to talk about. I know that Scott has got controls there, so if you got something you want to talk about, open that bad boy up, and maybe we can attack some of these things.
Questions, thoughts, comments, anybody?
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
I don't know where the raise your hand button is, but I think Jose had the question about
the military,
about war and military and that. I'm not going to go into the whole big thing about it, but the answers are in the catechism. And they start with paragraph 2302. So a little bit of homework for him is to get his hands on a catechism, which he should have anyway.
And it's on the iPietà app and on.
I looked on it. It's the new one isn't on there. I don't think.
Okay.
It's got the old ones on there, but not the new one.
Okay.
Because right before the session, I thought maybe that'd be a place to look, and I looked it up.
All right.
But go to your catechism and on starting on paragraph 2302, and it's under the section Safeguarding Peace, and it'll answer all his questions that he had, that he put down there, in the asking the questions and comments. The one thing I will say is the church is against all war. Okay, but there's always a but. Church realizes that a nation has the right to safeguard, its integrity. But I'd go to the catechism and read it, and it'll give you a good explanation of what it says about war and soldiers and all that stuff. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
yeah, I understand some of that stuff too on what it talks about when it talks about a just war.
Just
Yeah.
wars.
Yeah,
No.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, speaking of the catechism, I'm in the process right now of just reading through the entire thing because, you could read the entire catechism in just 2 pages a day. I mean, even if it's kind of sometimes like you've heard of people doing like the 1-year Bible, and they start in January, and you can buy 1-year Bibles where they're broken up into just like a little bit each day. I decided, I'm like, what am I doing? I need to, discipline myself to read through the catechism again. I've read through it before, but I mean, it's been a while since I've like really dug in. And so I was like, and so I'm doing 3 pages a day right now and throughout February to make up for the fact that I didn't start until February 1st. I didn't do it in January.
I think I'm gonna have to do 4 pages a day.
But I mean, these pages are so short, you guys. If you don't, I mean, I know most of you know what a catechism is, but they're like $9, $7, $8, $9. You can find one on Amazon. And I mean, the pages are so short, but they're so powerful. Mike, that's why I sent you. That was a picture from the catechism that I sent you about the
I saw that. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm reading through that, and I'll tell you what, these words are life. These are powerful. You know what I mean? Apart from the Bible, this book is extremely powerful. And so just a couple of pages a day gets you through the catechism in a year. Just a thought.
The other thing, I think, if you haven't seen those video clips from St. Thomas Institute, really take a look at them, because if somebody starts asking you about questions about these subjects, the speaker, I forget his name, he mentions it's scripture and he mentions the catechism, but I think he expounded mostly on natural law. That's, that applies to most of the things that, the subjects we talked about. What's the natural law? And I think if you go from there, you have a good basis, just to stay with natural law. What does nature have? What does nature intend for us to do? And I have a cousin that's a nurse, and she's pro-choice. Okay. And we're there at her place, and we're in the car and we were debating. And the question I asked her when we were going on here was, Joanne, when does life begin? And her being in the medical field, it shut her right up.
Yeah.
Because she knows, like you said.
It's a concept. It's a
contraception. Yeah.
Yeah. Conception, period.
And again, that's all natural. That's nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with scriptures. That's just natural law, that we're all supposed to live by.
Yep.
And, the other things you mentioned, and I'll go back on the homosexual issue and same-sex marriage, and that, again, that all falls back on natural law,
Parts is parts.
Yeah, but it's the way the church looks at it is, when somebody asks me this question, what do you feel about, the same-sex marriage, movement? It's, we in the church love the sinner, not the sin. And like you said, Mike, we got to still accept them as children of God. We've got to see Christ in them. We love them, but we don't necessarily condone the actions. And that's about all I got, unless there's other questions.
Amen. Anybody else? Scripture.
The subjects are very sensitive. That's why.
Hey, like I said, none of you guys have the pleasure of teaching in a public high school.
That has got to be a tough job. I mean,
especially as I grow further and further in my faith and I see the things that go on, I'm glad I'm almost retired.
Yeah. And all we can do is, we just got to pray for what's going on in our country today.
Absolutely.
With this New York bill and, the Virginia stuff, I just don't understand our direction, where we're heading for, Yeah. And, it's even ironic. I don't think the Supreme Court, like you say, even knows what to do. This happened a number of years ago when I was still a police officer. The abortion law allows, for the killing of a human being or, by a person, an abortion. But yet, this was back in Pennsylvania. If an individual shot a pregnant woman and killed her and the baby died, he was guilty of 2 homicides.
Yeah, double murder.
Double murder.
Yeah.
Now, how can they rule that?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you balance that?
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Apples are apples and oranges are oranges.
Exactly. So. And we just got to continue praying.
Amen. Definitely for that. Yep. Anybody else, Scott?
Hey, Mike.
Yo.
This is Will. Sorry, I got
Hello.
in there. How you doing? I just have a comment too. My oldest daughter, who just turned 40, God, she'll kill me to say that. She was 14 weeks premature. She was 2 pounds, 10 ounces. And they lost a fetal heartbeat 3 hours before she was born. And when the nurse went and grabbed her after she was born, they didn't think she was going to make it. So they put her on an incubator, and she breathed on her own for 20 minutes before the doctors decided to resuscitate her. And now she's 40 years old.
Amen.
Intelligent and everything. So when I hear something like, well, at 24 weeks, we're going to get rid of this child. Come on. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. As a matter of fact, like Tom said, we need to pray because
Absolutely.
it's just appalling. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
That's my comment for the night.
Great comment. No, it's great. Awesome.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Gary, did you have something to say?
No, I was just sitting here listening and learning.
When he moved his camera, it picked up the audio. Hey, so for the State of the Union, didn't he address this to make it a more sweeping change to kind of counteract these decisions? So those are things we should be praying for, right? That,
Yeah, absolutely.
We're
lucky.
Those larger laws are actually pushed forward, and those people that stood up are actually making decisions. And hopefully all those folks that were sitting during that announcement, that people wake up and don't vote them back into office.
No
Obviously,
doubt.
their politics are more than just this one issue, but that was pretty appalling to see all those folks sitting.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. Whether you're a Trump fan or not, he is by far our most pro-life president we've had in a while. And he's done some things to try to help that out, and we can just keep praying. Adam, it's a great point.
We got to get some more. How do I say this? Judges on the federal benches, because I just read today that Louisiana has a law that sort of curtails abortion, and a federal judge has put an injunction against it. Says it. And this is constantly happening at the federal level. I mean, you see in the states are trying to put in types of laws to either prohibit or to curtail or to prevent late-term abortions, and it's these federal judges that are putting injunctions against them and shooting them down.
Well, right now you got 300 judges waiting to be confirmed by the Senate that were all nominated by President Trump, and they would all be pretty conservative. And we need to get those. We need to pray for those people to get on the bench quick.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, somebody has something. Scott, good?
I don't
I have a
see.
special request, Mike.
Go ahead.
Yo, what's up?
So your final slide still says that you're going to rap for us. Since you
Rap
don't want to, I know you're not a great speller, and there's a W in there. So since it's twice in a row, I want to make sure you rap the final slide from here on out. Okay.
No. Look, like I said, I teach history, not English. All right.
All right. Hey, so that's is that your final concluding slide right there? Those are
Yeah,
the
just Flame Keepers on the 17th at Jose's house, and
Are
that's
awesome.
on the website.
Hey guys,
And
that's a Marian retreat? I thought the Linton
this
retreat
one's
is
a Linton Marian retreat.
that's
Yeah,
a Linton Marian retreat. Okay,
yeah.
and that's at St. Mary's.
That's at St. Mary's. Starts at, I believe, 3 in the afternoon on Friday. We'll go to about 9 at night. There'll be refreshments, and then it starts at, I believe, 9:30 the next morning, and it'll go through Mass. Again, light refreshments, guest speakers, and also they're asking for a donation of $15 if you have it, but it's not required.
It's not required. So $15 donation is asked for, and that's it. And you can be a part of that retreat for a few days.
Yep.
Awesome. That's awesome. Flame Keepers, the next meeting that we're doing live gathering is February 17th. Bob's calling right now. He wants to say something. He's calling my watch, but his microphone's not working. Hey, sweetheart, can you read me my phone?
Hey, once again, thanks, Mackenzie, for helping us put all this together. You're amazing.
I want to say this, guys. There's a lot of developments happening. I mean, I was meeting with Gary today. Gary, by the way, I'd really thank you for having coffee today. We were just chewing through some stuff and just really vision casting, praying through. I'm not sure, babe. But there's a lot of things that are starting to bubble up. And on February 17th at Jose's house, we're actually going to be making a few announcements of some kind of new things that are happening. So I want to encourage everybody to be there on February 17th, because there's like 3 or 4 developments that are going to be awesome. I would share them tonight, but I want to confirm them with Father Vidal first. But we're on the 17th at Jose's house. We're going to have a number of things to share, just some new stuff. And if you guys would just be in prayer about everything that's going on. We know we've got that Flame Keepers table inside the foyer. We're feeding donuts and bagels, and we're reaching people. I mean, we've had so many people come up and just ask questions about what is this thing. I mean, women, men, little kids eating donuts, and then their parents are just walking up and hanging out and talking and wanting to know what's going on. And I'm telling you, people are longing for fellowship, and they are longing for catechesis. They may not use that wording, but they're longing for more. And that's what I'm getting. I'm getting people walking up to the table and saying, I want more. Like I'm going to Mass. But I also want more. And so there's a hunger right now. And so I just want to encourage everybody, when you see that table, come hang out by it. Come talk with people. Help us man that thing. We're actually going to be doing one of the things. I'll leak one of the things. Okay, we're going to be doing an advertising table training, actually, because there's like a whole thing that we're doing on purpose, and we need people to man that table. And so we're actually going to be doing an advertising table training because that table is reaching folks right now. And Chris, thank you for being such a part of it. I told Chris when we first started, I grabbed him. I said, we have permission to do this advertising table. And we have 1,000 families per weekend, on any given weekend coming through. And we just need to have a table there at all times. And I'll tell you why, because Adam Ringel, you're on this right now. I was just one guy who happened to walk into St. Mary's on a day where Adam got up and said, hey, we're having dinner at my house, that there's a men's meeting. And that advertisement is the only reason that I'm even here right now. on this video. And that was like, over 2 years ago, because there was an advertisement. And so when we had that table out there and we've got that sign out there, that sign's not necessarily for Mike. Mike knows when the meetings are. That sign's not for Gary. Gary knows when the meetings are. When I'm standing up there at the pulpit, and I'm holding up Jeremiah's cards to reel, people in, that's not for Moises. Moises knows when the men's club meeting is. You know what I'm saying? This is because we don't know who's watching that we don't know is watching. It's for the guy who needs us and doesn't know it yet. It's for the wife who's longing for her husband to find some godly relationships. So I just want to encourage you guys. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
No, I said amen.
Yeah. To just be in prayer over what the Lord is doing with Flame Keepers, with this online gathering, to pray about being faithful. We're going to have another gathering next month here, and just to pray about being faithful and what will God do if we will steward our live gathering, if we'll steward this online gathering, if we will steward the advertisement table. What will happen when July comes and we go on that retreat? And so if you guys would just be praying about how we can steward this thing together, that would be really, really awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
It's off the subject, but I think I'd like to thank your wife so much for those brownies she makes every week. I want you to tell her that. They are good.
Babe, your brownies are good. She says thank you. Yeah, Bob, can you guys hear Bob talk? You're on speakerphone. Can you guys hear when Bob talks?
I was trying.
Yes.
It's going through. I can hear it. Okay, hang on. I'm going to turn off my PC here, man. Okay. All right. That's all. Two things. In the discussion, Mike, I want to point out something about the contraception aspect. When most of you know, I was Protestant up until 2010. And so much that I've learned in these last 8 to 9 years, boy, I sure wish I'd had this catechesis experience of information back when we were young and
can you turn your volume down, sweetheart?
Family and so forth. I really encourage any of you who may be contracepting to really look into natural family planning procedures and process. What a wonderful gift God gave us to do things naturally. Unfortunately, in our situation, and we all know that these sessions, things that are said here, and I don't know if there's any family members listening, I would ask that the guys mute to them, because what is said here is just like the rules up at the retreat remain here, because I have some information I'll share that I would not like to get back to my family members. That is to say that because of health issues,